Spooky season is here, Halloween is quickly approaching, and there's honestly no better way to celebrate, in my opinion, than to watch a good old scary movie. Whether you're into aliens or monsters, end of the world nonsense, or religious/supernatural stuff, there is a horror movie that fits what you're looking for, baby. I love scary movies personally. Paranormal and religious stuff, that was my go-to when I was in high school. But now I'm really into more true crime documentaries and just effed up documentaries in general. But in my opinion, a good comparison to true crime docs are slasher films. Now, what defines a slasher film? A slasher film is a subgenre of horror films involving a killer stalking and murdering a group of people, usually by use of blades or sharp tools such as a knife, chainsaws, scalpels, etc. When you think of those classic slasher films, you may think of Halloween, Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, or Child's Play. Or you may even think of some of the newer slasher films such as Happy Death Day, Midsommar, Bodies, 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 and Pearl. The newer generations of slasher films look very different than the classic ones where you just see a masked, unidentified person with a knife going to slash people up. And that brings us to what we're going to talk about today, the 2022 slasher film, They Slash Them. They Slash Them premiered at the Outfest Film Festival in LA on July 24th, 2022, and was later released on August 5th, 2022 on streaming, but only available on Peacock. The movie takes place at a conversion therapy camp where they will undergo a week of programming to help them find a new sense of freedom. As things start to unfold, an unidentified axe murderer starts taking lives, and the campers work together to stay protected. Now, I remember seeing the trailer for this when this came out last year, and I was automatically criticizing it just because the name, first of all. Now, it is pronounced they slash them. You have to say the slash, which is pretty funny because usually when people say their pronouns, they don't say I use she/her pronouns. They just say I use she, her pronouns, he, him, they, them, whatever. So it was a very obvious choice for them to include the pronunciation of slash so you know that it's a slasher film. So just the name alone and the fact that it was pretty much premiering on Peacock, I didn't have high hopes for it. And after looking at some reviews, I could say that my assumptions were correct. So I finally decided to give it a watch this spooky season, and I thought I'd make some content out of it. So enough of the chit-chatting. Let's talk about 2022's slasher film, They Slash Them. Now, first off, I do just want to say this is a safe space for all of my queer, gender non-conforming, trans, non-binary babes. If you're going to come on this video to spread hate about how you think being trans, non-binary, all that shit is an abomination, just click off this video. We have no space here for that. I myself am a queer baddie. I have queer people in my life that I love, and this is no place for hate. I'll leave 2 links down below with more resources if you want to learn more about gender neutral pronouns. But that's all I'm going to say in regards to that. So yeah, let's get started with the movie review. So we start off like any other good old horror movie with an older woman driving down a windy road during the middle of the night. She's listening to a true crime podcast, of course, and she quickly turns it off because she's starting to get too creeped out. As soon as she turns it off, of course, she hears a loud bang and her car stops. As she gets out the car to investigate, she notices that one of her car tires are blown out. As she tries to call for help, she doesn't have a signal on her phone. So she begins to look around because I think she just feels that, somebody's watching her. And then shortly, a big ass moose just pops out of the woods. And then we see behind her a masked figure. So she goes back inside her car, and for some reason she doesn't just drive off right away. She just puts her foot hovering over the gas, she's waiting for something to come scare her before she leaves, and that's where she fucked up. Because she's looking at her rearview mirror and she sees the Jason knockoff holding an axe, and she screams, and a second later we see Jason beside her smash her window open and just start going ham. This of course sets the scene for the rest of the movie, and we see down the street from where the murder took place is Whistler Camp, where the setting of the movie will take place. After this opening scene, we see a bus taking the campers to Whistler Camp, and we see Kevin Bacon playing Owen Whistler. He comes out and introduces himself and the rest of the staff members, and it kind of feels like a murder mystery setup the way he's introducing them, because after he introduces the counselors, he introduces the dog and the groundskeeper. And the groundskeeper is already like pretty sus, giving you like weirdo vibes. So it's making you think like, oh, this might be a suspect. And because we already know like somebody's going to die, right? I felt like that was setting that up to be a little bit obvious, but we'll see. But Owen tells the campers that he doesn't care if they're gay. He's not there to change them. He tells them as long as they know who they are, that's all that matters. And as long as they know that God loves them, that's all that matters. And he's not going to talk about God for the rest of the time that they're at the camp. Pretty much says that throughout this whole week that they're going to have free time mixed in with time talking to like a therapist and just pretty much just work through why they're there. After he gives the rundown, he separates the campers into girls and guys cabins, and they start to walk away. And we see one person left standing. Owen talks to them and says, "Excuse me, can I help you?" The person says, "I'm trans non-binary, so I'm assuming you don't have any gender inclusive cabins." Owen says, "No, we clearly have to work on that, but you can sit on the boys' cabin, and if that doesn't work out for you, then we could talk about something else." The person goes, "Thank you, I appreciate that," and we go on about the movie. The next scene, we see the campers are all in like a group therapy session, and pretty much all of them are there just to make a deal with their parents. If they were there for a week, then they would be able to go on a trip, then they would be able to move out the house, things like that. And we learned that the main character, who's trans non-binary, their name is Jordan, and they're there because their parents made a deal that if they were there for the week, then Jordan would be able to emancipate themselves. So we already see that this is setting like a serious tone. And I really appreciated that they are like shedding a light on, the struggles that queer youth specifically go through. So I appreciated the scene because I can see how like if a young queer person is watching this, first of all, to have queer people represented in a movie in general is like a huge win, and especially be featured in a scary movie. I thought that was really cool, so they can feel appreciated in that just alone. But I also did think it was a good way to introduce, the struggles that queer youth go through, especially with their families. After this group therapy session, we see the kids walking off to their cabins, and we see the groundskeeper checking out the girls like in a really creepy way. One of the girls yells him off, tells him that he's playing for the wrong team because clearly they're all gay, and he just like runs off like really suspect. Later that night, we see one of the girls taking a shower, and it's giving off those creepy, ominous vibes, like somebody's about to get killed type thing. And we see someone barge in, and it's not the killer, it's one of the counselors. And we see the next scene, it's the next morning, and we see her taking her luggage to the boys' cabin. Owen tells the boys that they have a new roommate, which is this girl, her name's Alexandra, and she's a trans woman. And this honestly caught me off guard. I don't know why, right? Because the movie's called They/Them, so why wouldn't it be like hella transphobic? Before Owen leaves, he tells the boys that they have to dress appropriately, obviously making, a stab at Alexandra because she is a girl, so obviously she's gonna dress like a girl. She doesn't have any boys' clothes. And we see her freaking out about this in the cabin. So Jordan tells the other guys, like, we have to help her out. Does anybody have any clothes to spare for Alexandra? And we see the next scene, all the campers are lined up for their morning activities. And we see that Jordan is wearing Alexandra's dress and Alexandra is wearing Jordan's clothes. So obviously they switch outfits. And this obviously rubs Owen the wrong way, rubs all of the staff the wrong way. And this transitions to a really, really corny montage of them just doing like their morning activities, bonding, growing closer as campers. And throughout the whole time, all of the counselors are just staring at Jordan like pretty ominously. So it's very clear that they're making Jordan a target. Later that day, we see Alexandra step into the main office, and she's looking through this bin. In the beginning where the campers came in, they actually collected all of the campers' medicines and electronics. And the brunette counselor like stops her. She's like, "What are you doing?" And she tells her, like, "I just really need my Zoloft. Like, I just like really need to take it." The counselor says that she really can't let her take it without getting the other staff members' approval. Alexandra explodes, and she tells the counselor that her pills are actually estrogen pills. And she made a deal with her parents that if she came to the camp for a week, then she would be able to, go see her brother, because they threatened that if she didn't go to the camp, then she wouldn't be able to see her brother again. She's just saying in order to make it through that week that she needs her medicine. The counselor ends up giving in, lets her take the medicine, and she says, we have to keep this our little secret. Later that night, while the campers are sleeping, we see the athletic coach come in, and he barges in and wakes up the guys in the middle of the night. And this transitions to a scene with Owen and all of the campers in black robes. He tells them that they're going to be paired off. They're going to go walk in the woods for 10 minutes, and that he'll see them the next morning. Jordan and Alexandra are paired off, and we see them chatting, and Jordan brings up how they're feeling just really, really weird about the whole thing. Alexandra says, well, you know, it is a gay conversion camp, so obviously it's not going to be that normal. And Jordan said it would make a lot of sense to them if they were like talking about the Bible and had hella gay bashing, but none of that is going on. So everything just feels really weird. And after Jordan says that, they both see this masked figure in the distance, also wearing a black robe. They stare down each other for a little bit, and Jordan says, who is that? And the person just walks away, just disappears in the distance. We then see two of the counselors snooping through the boys' cabin. One of them finds a Bible in Jordan's backpack. And through all of the pages, they're just like drawings and sketches that Jordan made to pretty much affirm like their queer identity. The counselor finds a page that has a verse about if a woman wears a man's clothes and vice versa, that they're an abomination. The next day, we see Jordan getting ready to talk to the psychiatrist. And during their conversation, the psychiatrist says how much she relates to Jordan. She says that she grew up as a Navy brat, and that if she wasn't in that environment, that she'd probably be a boy too. She then asks Jordan if they think their parents are disappointed in them, and Jordan says, sometimes. And the counselor replies that she's sure it makes them angry, sad, and ultimately probably feels like nothing. They probably feel like nothing. They don't even feel like a loser. They just feel like nothing because their parents won't notice them. So then the counselor starts saying that because of this, Jordan most likely wanted to do something to make them feel special and to make them feel seen. And that's the reason why they are they. She says how it's fake, how no one will love them, and that they should just admit to being a scared, lonely, ugly little dyke. Well, goddamn. Again, another instance of just being hella transphobic. I don't know what I expected. Again, the title, it's like a given. But that's how their conversation ends, and that's that. That night, we see Jordan having a heart-to-heart with Alexandra in the cabins, and pretty much they're just talking about, you know, being queer and how they've always felt different since they were younger, and they know how they feel. They know that they're non-binary, they know that they're trans, and they know that this isn't something that's fake or made up. And Alexandra is really there to validate them and to support them. And again, I thought this was another scene that was really sweet and could help validate queer trans youth, or even just queer trans people in general, and to have that opportunity to see themselves represented in media, again, I thought was a cool touch. This quickly became hella cringy. Because in the middle of Alexandra validating Jordan, she starts singing the song Perfect by Pink. And at first it was cute because of just her singing. And then, of course, Jordan jumps in. And then, of course, the whole cabin is having a whole kumbaya. Everyone's singing the whole song. Everyone's like, oh my God, we're fucking perfect the way we are. Hell yeah, we're queer. Hell yeah. Then it brings us back in because we see Owen in the distance, looking at the campers celebrating, looking very ominously. Later that night, while the campers are sleeping, Jordan goes to sneak away to the main office. And while they're there, they end up finding this secret file of old pictures of kids. And all the kids had bruises as if they were beaten. And they also had bruises as if they were like chained up. Brunette counselor finds Jordan snooping around. The counselor says that she didn't really know, or that she didn't want to know. Jordan says that she has to help them, that they know that she helped Alexandra with her medicine, and that she has to help them pretty much stay protected because she knows what's about to come up. She says that she'll try her best, and then warns Jordan that Owen already doesn't like them. And then Jordan pretty much just says, well, he doesn't know who he's fucking with. All right, Jordan, fair enough. I see you. All right. The next scene, we see the creepy groundskeeper and like his little lair, I guess. And we see that on his monitor, he's watching the girls' cabin take a shower. But shortly after, the killer comes behind him, just starts going ham once again. And that makes him the first victim at the camp. The next day, the girls and the guys are split up into separate activities. The boys are going to the shooting range and the girls are staying in the kitchen to make pies. While the boys are shooting targets, we find out that Jordan is a really, really good shooter, and the athletic coach challenges them to a shoot-off. Of course, Jordan shows him up and Owen is really, really impressed. Then talks about how it's a man's duty to be a killer, how it's innate in a man's DNA for them to rip flesh apart and to eat flesh. He then asks the campers who's gonna be his killer. He taunts them, he keeps asking, and clearly we know that Jordan should be the one to step up, but everyone's just standing around. And eventually Owen picks Toby. He picks on Toby because Toby is really flamboyant, and he's been saying that since the moment he got there, that he's just a big flaming fire. I forget what he said, but pretty much he was just saying that he's like a really, really flamboyant gay guy. But he tells Toby that he has to kill the dog. He tells them that the dog has cancer and that he's dying anyway, and that if he shoots him, he'd be putting the dog out of his misery. Toby refuses, he's throwing a fit. And Owen starts to yell at him, and he tells them that if he doesn't shoot, the athletic coach is going to take a sledgehammer and break the dog's legs and let him bleed out to death. Toby is in hysterics. He's freaking out. And Owen is just yelling at him to tell him to be a man for the first time in his life, and that if he doesn't kill the dog in one shot, that he'll still be tortured by the athletic coach. While Owen's still screaming at Toby, we just hear a bang. And we see the dog laying dead, and we see that Jordan was the one who took the shot. Owen smiles at them and says, "Well, there's my killer," and Jordan just angrily walks away. While the girls are making pies, we see that the counselor is making a move on Kim, and she's mentioned during their counseling sessions that she has always felt, really weird for being queer because she lives in a really, really straight, cishet white suburbia, so she feels like really, really out of place. The counselor then asks Kim for some alone time after they're done making the pies, and we see Veronica. She's been getting really close to Kim. She is a little suspicious about this while she's leaving. Long story short, we see the counselor try to make a move on Kim, and she's visibly upset and she walks away crying. Later that day, we see that she's sitting by the docks alone crying. Veronica then comes up to talk to her, cheer her up, and then they just have a heart-to-heart again, just really validating each other for being queer cis women, which I thought was, again, I think anybody relating this, I thought they had a good diverse cast that could really relate to different, queer people. So I think anybody watching this can relate to any part of the film, whether they're young, my age, older, so that was great. While they're having the heart to heart, there's some build up, some anticipation that they're about to kiss. They're making out. This is Kim's first gay experience, so of course I'm rooting for her all the way. But in my opinion, this scene just goes on for way too long. We see them making out, we see them taking their clothes off, and again, I'm just like, okay, we know that the actors are adults, but these are supposed to be high school kids, and we're literally just watching them have sex. Okay? It literally gets so far that we see Veronica giving Kim head. I didn't need to see all that. I know it was fake, but I literally did not need to see all that. Okay? But anyway, we're more than halfway through the movie, and we see Jordan, Alexandra, and Toby having a conversation. They're talking about how things are getting worse and that they need to start thinking of a plan to leave. Jordan tells Toby and Alexandra that they're gonna hitch a plan to steal one of the buses the next day and to pretty much just lay low for the rest of the night. We then transition to a guy named Stuart chilling by himself at the lake. And Stuart has opened up during his therapy sessions that since he is a jock, he pretty much just hates being gay because he wants to apply for scholarships, saying he can't be queer and be a swimmer. He has been the most self-hating gay guy throughout the whole film. So he's pretty much there to, be converted to be straight. While he's there chilling in the lake, we see another guy named Gabriel come up and he asks him if he wants to be alone. Stuart says no. And then we see Gabriel take off his clothes to join Stuart. We quickly see that Stuart is very attracted to Gabriel. Long story short, they end up having a moment and they start making out. And Gabriel tells them, "I don't want to have sex out here at the lake. Let's go to a different place." And they end up in this sus-ass closet with pitchforks and other random weapons, which I thought was weird. But they end up having sex. And again, another sex scene that goes way too long in my opinion. But I will say I will give them kudos for including a gay male sex scene. I'll give snaps to that. After they're done, Stuart asks Gabriel if he regrets it, if he regrets having sex, and if he hates being gay. Gabriel says not at all. He then starts to say how there's so many labels such as bi, gay, trans, and that none of those labels actually really matter. There's only 2 labels that really matter: predator and prey. Gabriel says that he knows who he is, and then he asks Stuart, do you know which one you are? Well, it's time for you to decide. And then we see Owen and the athletic dude turn on the light, and they were all in on it. Owen tells Stuart that he thought he would do better and not fall for the forbidden fruit. So clearly we see that Gabriel, who looks like they were there as just another camper, is actually in on it. He's literally there to tempt other queer men, and if they take the bait, then they take them to have an aversion therapy session. They bring Stuart to a room, they handcuff him to a chair, and they tie a piece of fabric over his mouth. They start to explain how aversion therapy is pretty much just retraining your brain to make you think something that you like is bad, such as a bad habit like biting your nails, overeating, fucking other men. They then tape the end of jumper cables to his chest, and they show a picture of a woman in lingerie on a screen. The picture then switches to a picture of a shirtless man, and then they shock Stuart. Obviously, this is the aversion therapy. He's going to see the man. He's going to feel attracted. And then the shock is supposed to be, a negative reaction like, this is bad. This is a bad thing to have feelings for other men. They repeat this process over and over. And he ends up getting shocked so many times that he ends up passing out. He's unconscious. They bring him to the main office. The brunette counselor is like freaking out. She's like, what happened? They're just like, we got a situation. I just need you to look over him and make sure he's okay. The counselor is like, no, enough of this. I'm going to take him to the hospital, and then I'm going to report you to the cops because I can't keep up with this. Like, this is too much. I'm over it. Owen says that no one's going to care about a bunch of pervert kids, and that he's like a man of business. He deserves to be respected. And then he tells the counselor that she's fired and that she has to leave by the next day, and that he orders her to watch after Stuart. The next scene, we see the blonde counselor that made a move on Kim, and we see the athletic coach laying in bed, presumably about to have sex, but we see them on their phones looking through pictures of other people. The girl is looking through pictures of shirtless men, and the guy is looking at pictures of girls in lingerie. We then see that they both are looking at the other person's pictures to pretty much agree if they like the picture that they're holding up. So once they both land on a picture that they like, they start not really having sex, but like dry humping and shit. And the guy is looking at the picture of the shirtless guy, and the girl is looking at the picture of the girl in lingerie. So clearly these people are still gay, and they're putting on this front like the conversion therapy worked and that they're straight. But as they're doing their thing, we see the girl scream, and we just cut to a scene of blood on the phone. And again, the slasher's just going ham, going in, just tearing them both up. And I'll say that by this point, there's 20 minutes left of the movie, and this is only technically our second killing of the cast. Well, I know it's like actually 3 if you account that lady being killed in the beginning, but we cut to the next scene and we see Gabriel having some alone time, chilling at the lake. And while he's chilling, he sees the dead body of the groundskeeper and of course starts to freak out. While he's freaking out, he gets up, he starts backing out of the lake. He turns around and he sees the slasher, and they bang his head. Next scene, we see Gabriel waking up tied to the chair where Stuart got zapped. And the slasher is just sitting there taunting him, going through the pictures, just flashing through the pictures really fast. See Gabriel screaming and pleading, telling him no, 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 until eventually the killer ends up shocking him so hard and for so long that he ends up passing out, and we can assume that he's dead. We then see Veronica and Kim sneak out into the dining hall to get some more alone time, and they find the 4 dead victims sitting at the dining tables. So this brings all of the camp together, and they're gonna take the bus to escape the camp. And we see Owen talk to one of the other counselors, and he tells them to grab all of the rifles. Stuart is still in the infirmary, and the brunette counselor says that she's gonna stay back with him and that the campers should just all leave without them. And then Toby up and runs and leaves because all of a sudden that's his man. I don't know when that happened, because homie literally just hooked up with Gabriel, but apparently that was your man. Okay. Then we see Alexandra. She's fed up. She says that she doesn't trust the counselors to come and get the bus for them and that she's just going to walk into town. So she ends up taking the rest of the campers with her because they agree that they would be safer together. And Veronica, Kim, and Jordan all stay back to stay with Toby and Stu. Veronica and Kim go check up on Toby and Stu, and Jordan goes to the main office to get the rifles. While there, Owen comes in because it's been a minute since the other counselor came back. He's looking for her. He's like, where you been? We need the rifles. And Jordan goes to hide in a closet. He sees the dead body of the counselor. While he's hiding, we see Owen get knocked down by the killer, and they end up unmasking themselves. And it ends up being the brunette counselor. She says, you don't remember me, do you? She then explains that her name is Angie Phelps and she was a camper there when she was 14. She talks about how after camp she self-harmed, was heavily medicated by doctors, and her soul ended up hollowed out. She says that that's what Owen does. He hollows out the souls of children. She says that once this gets out on the news, that no one will ever want to send their kids to a conversion therapy camp, and that all of the counselors will be burning in hell right next to her. Owen then pins her down on the ground and starts choking her, and Jordan holds him at gunpoint and says to get off of her. Of course, Owen is trying to guilt trip Jordan, saying that they're scared and that they don't really want to kill an innocent man. Angie's going crazy, saying that they need to do this, and eventually Jordan's like, no, I'm strong enough to not do this. And then they put down the gun. Very bold move. I don't know if I would have did the same thing, but okay. Angie then quickly pushes Owen to the wall where there's like a head figure of a rhino, and his pointy ass horn just stabs him right in the back. He starts bleeding out, and she tells Owen that all she wanted to do was renew, rejoice, and get revenge right before slicing his throat. She looks at Jordan and she says how they can join forces. She says that they can slaughter all the other counselors at other conversion camps. And then we start to hear sirens in the background. Jordan says that it's time to tell the truth and that they want to go back to their friends and that they just want to go back to living a normal life. Angie says how she was just trying to save them, how she's just trying to save every other queer kid who went through the experience that she did. And it's time for her to get payback. It's time for her to stop this once and for all. Jordan says that they don't need saving. And the scene ends with Jordan walking out of the main office. As they open up the door, it's like in slow motion, and we just see the cops charging in, presumably to arrest Angie. And again, this is like one of those moments where it's like, okay, I see what you're trying to do, but it was just very, very corny. It's the next morning, and we see that the cops and the paramedics are there, and Angie is just now being put away in handcuffs. Huh? I'm confused. I thought we just saw the cops barging in to arrest her. Why is it now the morning time and she's just being thrown? Okay, anyway, it doesn't matter. You see Stuart getting in an ambulance and he's having a moment with Toby. Again, I'm still confused because when did they become lovers? And we see the gang, Alexandra, Jordan, Kim, and Veronica, talking about going back to the real world. And Jordan says how they're finally gonna get emancipated. And the movie closes out with another round of Pink's Perfect. And that, my friends, is 2022's They/Them. Overall, you know, it wasn't like the worst thing in the world. I would say if you're interested, definitely give it a watch. But it's nothing special, nothing new. I was really disappointed for them to be a self-proclaimed slasher, and for most of the killings to happen within the last 10 minutes of the movie. I thought that was like, they just forgot that they were a slasher film. Like, seriously. I felt like they were trying to incorporate like the inclusion of like queer identity and to like validate the queer cast and like queer people watching, that they almost forgot that they were a horror film. Like, they would talk about these validating queer like issues and then just be like, oh, but we're in a horror movie, but someone's after us. Like, oh, it's suspenseful. I felt like it had the potential to be like the gay Friday the 13th, but it was just like a big flop. Let me know, what are your thoughts? And I have some ideas of what I want to do next. I'm undecided if I want to do a reality TV show, if I want to review like an old reality show, or if I want to talk about a documentary. So let me know, what would you guys want to see next? That is all I have for today's video. If you enjoyed, make sure you give this a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed, help me reach my next goal of 5,000 subscribers. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.